This morning, the Utah Office of Homeless Services released its 2025 annual report. And notably, this report includes data from this year's point in time or PIT count, which was conducted earlier this year in January. That count showed 4,584 Utahns experiencing homelessness on a single night, which is an 18% increase from 2024. That's an additional 715 people across the state without housing. The report also outlines several other year-over-year increases, including, sadly, the number of Utah children experiencing homelessness has increased by 12%. The number of Utahns over age 64 experiencing homelessness rose 42%. And the number of veterans experiencing homelessness increased by 36%. I want to be clear that I'm standing here before you today because I am deeply concerned about the trajectory of homelessness in the state of Utah and in our capital city. And what's more, I'm extremely concerned by the lack of forward momentum from legislative leaders to address this growing statewide crisis. This year's point-in-time count showing the 18% increase in Utahns experiencing homelessness should be heard as a battle cry to bring more energy, focus, and leadership to this issue by our state legislature. To our state leaders, your partners are here. We are ready and willing to work with you, and the changes that are needed are clear. As your partners, we have a plan for 1,300 more shelter beds. We have made land available, yet as of today, we have only 1/3 of the capital funding needed to build the first phase, and not a penny of operational capital. Salt Lake City's public safety plan mapped 50 actions needed to improve safety and address homelessness in our capital city, and Salt Lake City is making good on our part. But the reality is this is a humanitarian crisis. This is not something that we can police our way out of. And as Chief Red will share momentarily, Salt Lake City is taking enforcement as far as we can, and to little avail. We continue to see record-setting numbers of calls for service through 911 to our police department. We will set records for total arrests this year, thanks in part to increased proactive policing by our officers. And importantly, overall citywide crime remains at or below a 16-year low. We're enforcing our laws. But the sad reality is that without more mental health treatment, more shelter beds, more permanent supportive housing, and more capacity in our jails, too many people remain on our streets. Utah is one of the fastest growing states in the nation. We should not be surprised to find that more people are losing their housing due to financial and economic pressures when we couple it with the inadequate statewide housing stock. There are simply not enough options for housing, shelter beds, treatment centers, or social services to meet the demand in this state. As we lead up to next year's legislative session over the coming months, we are working with our state on system-wide solutions with the State Office of Homeless Services, the Administrative Office of the Courts, the legal defenders, our own Justice Court, Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson, Chief Dumont of the Salt Lake County Jail, District Attorney Sim Gill, and Representative Tyler Clancy, along with Chief Red and myself. Later this fall, this collective will bring legislative requests that are needed to right the wrongs in the system that exists today. But there are no wheels on the bus that we present unless the state moves us forward. We must see action from legislative leadership and our governor to create the change that we know is not only possible, but is desperately needed. As I said last month when we were out on these steps, progress has stalled on the creation of an additional permanent shelter due to inadequate funding to build and non-existent funding to operate a new campus shelter, and this is unacceptable. I'm calling on our state leaders to recognize the crisis at hand. Step in to join your willing partners in local government. and lead the passage of legislation that will invest both the capital and the ongoing operational funding for a new shelter space. In less than 2 years, thousands upon thousands of visitors will flock to our downtown blocks to celebrate the reopening of Salt Lake City Temple. It will be an event that lasts months, and one that welcomes those from every corner of the globe. In less than 9 years, the world will join our state in welcoming back the Olympic and Paralympic Games, Winter Games. Our downtown will be the heart of this gathering, showing a new generation of Utahns the power of coming together. I only hope that as our state and our visitation numbers continue to grow, so does our capacity for helping others. So do our shelter beds and our resources. Over the next several months before the legislative session, there will undoubtedly be many other such announcements, just like the state's annual report today, that will only add to our collective level of concern. The state will soon release its winter shelter overflow plans. We may learn more about what's causing the delays to the homelessness campus, and I do not believe that this will all be good news. So I'm telling you now, in the middle of our warmest months, that the situation is dire. Salt Lake City is doing everything in our power to improve the pieces of the system that we control, but those pieces are limited. In conclusion, I think we can also be heartened by some of the facts that are found in the state's report today. Our system can be incredibly effective at resolving homelessness. 75% of emergency shelter stays lasted less than 90 days before restabilization. 93% of those in permanent supportive housing either kept that housing or moved on to other permanent housing options. When we house people with the resources they need, they stabilize and stay housed. What's more, Utah's homelessness rate still stands well below the national averages. This isn't a crisis that our state is facing alone, and there's still time for us to course correct. We're doing the work to fix the gaps in the system that leave so many on our streets, but we need our state's leaders to prioritize the resources to get this done. Chief among the needs is the financial capital to build, ongoing funding for the shelter operations, more mental health, and more housing. So to Governor Cox, President Adams, and Speaker Schultz, I'm calling on our state leadership to create the sea change that we need to address an issue that impacts all Utahns and just increased by 18%. Thank you, and I'm going to turn the time over to Chief Red.
I'll keep it short, but as the mayor mentioned, the Salt Lake City Police Department is working very hard. Our officers are working every day to improve and reduce crime in the community, though we're having some challenges. Arrests are up, citations are up, officer proactivity is up, and they're doing a great job. And not just our officers, but also our alternate response, our social workers, and we're communicating with all of our partners in the social services system, other parts of the criminal justice system. We're working very hard, but we do want to send the message that it is not okay to use drugs or do drugs in our community, in public spaces. We will hold you accountable if you do that. We are going to work hard to reduce violent crime that is occurring, and we're going to continue to do everything that we can, including working with all of our partners. It's going to take all of us to resolve these issues. This intersection of crime, homelessness, mental illness, and addiction cannot be solved solely by the police department, solely by social services, solely by locals or the state. We've all got to come together, and as a police department, we are committed to working with our partners in the community to reduce the crime that is occurring while we work on the front end and continue to be proactive. We do need more shelter beds, we do need more mental health beds, and we do need more jail beds. And we're not going to incarcerate drug users just to punish them, though that is part of the criminal justice system. But when we do that, we need to get them the assistance. We need to get them assessed in the jail. We need to get them The treatment started in the jail, and then we need them to release to a different environment than back to the street where the drugs are available. Our teams are going to continue to work closely with our allied law enforcement agencies. The Department of Public Safety is a great partner and is helping us here in the city. We're going to continue to go after the drug distribution networks, and we need to reduce supply, but we also need to reduce demand, and we need to get people off of the streets and create a better environment. And we're committed to doing that at the Salt Lake City Police Department. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. We have time for a couple questions if there are any.
Mayor, what are your thoughts about the governor's, the speaker, and the president's letter to the Utah Homeless Services Board recently urging an expedited response in response to the president's executive order on homelessness? What are your thoughts on that?
I appreciate it, and I appreciate any urgency they bring to getting solutions moving forward around homelessness in the state of Utah. So we'll have meetings coming up over the next several weeks, and I appreciate their sense of urgency. We need it to be followed by response at the legislative and leadership level.
Chief Fred, we also saw 36% of chronic homelessness in this last report, and I'm wondering how much of a connection there is with the recent surge in fentanyl interdiction in the state, and whether this increased supply of drugs is also related to increased chronic homelessness.
There is an overlap. The data is clear. There is an overlap between the drugs, the transient related crime, and violent crime. There is an overlap. So we do have to go after the drug distribution networks. As I mentioned last month, the price of fentanyl is up. We are enforcing. We are enforcing camping. We are enforcing drug distribution, all of it, but yeah, there is a connection to those things, and so we're going to continue to strike at the heart of the drug dealing.
Can I make a comment on that? I want to make a quick comment that the approach that we've been talking about for many years of this high utilizer focus that Miami-Dade County in Florida has been doing for over 23 years really is more urgent than ever because fentanyl is so devastating. We have to remove these individuals from the environment of use to become sober and make decisions in a sober environment that then hold them accountable after they leave jail. Holds them accountable perhaps through the criminal justice system as Miami-Dade County does, and that's the approach that we're exploring with the partners I mentioned earlier. This is a really small fraction of the total population of individuals who experience homelessness over the course of any given year in the state of Utah. And of course, there's plenty of individuals who aren't homeless who are also contributing to the fentanyl use and distribution. But we know that if we can focus on this very small relative population within Utah in the homelessness realm, we will have a disproportionately positive impact on capacity across the system and financial savings at every point. Yes?
Knowing that we have these vulnerable populations, such as children, seniors, veterans, how are Salt Lake City services being tailored to meet these unique needs of these residents?
Yeah, great. Thank you for that question. How is Salt Lake City responding specifically? We have invested more money in affordable housing over the last 6 years than the entirety of Salt Lake City's history. It's contributed to the creation of, I don't know what the most recent count is, over 6,000 affordable housing units. And we've been prioritizing some of that funding for family-sized affordability. This year, we're putting $5 million out to the private market to create deeply affordable housing. We've always wanted deeply, but it's harder to build. This year, we're just putting $5 million out for deeply affordable. And I want to also mention that in October, we opened our Tenant Resource Center. They're officed at the Community Development Corporation of Utah on 17th South. We have resources for people who are in housing and know that they're going to be losing it because they don't have the money. Their apartment's been bought and it will be demolished, or remodels are happening that are causing displacement. We can not only help them find new housing in areas that they want, but we have money to help them do so. So those are some of the ways that we're working to try to stabilize families.
Is there any update on the personal hygiene program?
Yes, we will have an update for you soon. We've contracted with the company who will be running the personal hygiene program out in the community. I can't give you the name and the update on that today, but we've signed the contracts and it's coming very soon. One more?
As I mean, heading into next winter or this winter, there's still no homeless campus, even though the deadline was around October. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. Do you have any additional thoughts about having to do another year of emergency winter response with no homeless campus, whether it's temporary or permanent?
Yeah, I two thoughts that are they should be upsetting to all of us. One is that there won't be enough beds. And we haven't had the state respond as they will by the end of August to the submitted plans from each county for the number of beds that will be needed. I'm very doubtful that those beds will be available. So we almost assuredly will have people on the streets with no option of space to go. The second and the most poignant part in a way is that the State Office of Homeless Services does not have funding to continue those beds after April. They have continued, I think, over 800 of those winter shelter beds into this summer because they had the funding from the legislature to do so. That funding does not exist right now. So come the end of the winter shelter season, everyone who's in one of the 900 plus beds that were created this year would be out on the streets. And the impact in our downtown core and throughout our neighborhoods and parks and trail system of 1,000 plus people flooding out with no option of places to go is very alarming. That's why even though the legislature isn't starting this month or what feels like anytime soon, we can't wait. These numbers of an 18% increase are startling. They should not be surprising though, because we've never been on a decrease and we continue to grow as a state. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your attention today.